When you think about history, are there lots of old guys wearing wigs and stockings? When you think about history, is Napoleon really short? And folks have wooden teeth. Do you know that history can be the most incredible, amazing stories for you and me? Sit back and listen to a story right now. It's honest, it's fun, and it's sure to.
Hi, young historians. Welcome to another episode of Anytime Now. I'm Brooke, co-founder of Honest History. Are you as excited about this episode as I am? I sure hope so. We're about to dive into another story-filled adventure and learn something new. And remember, by learning more about the past, you can make a positive impact on the future. So pack your bags and let's go.
Chances are you've seen a 7-Eleven. You can find them on street corners across the country selling all sorts of items, from hot pizza to blue raspberry Slurpees. It's the perfect place to go for a late night snack. Because that's the thing about 7-Eleven. It's almost always open. Today, it is the largest convenience store company in the world. So what if I told you that it all started with a block of ice and a wagon? This is the story of how a Texas ice company became the 7-Eleven that we all know today. The year was 1915. Jody Thompson heard the rattle of wagon wheels from around the corner. The men were getting back from the day's ice deliveries. They pulled the wagon up to the stables and waved at Jody. He patted the horses as the men jumped down from the wagon. "It's a scorcher," they said, wiping the sweat from their brows. It was another hot summer day in Oak Cliff, Texas. But they didn't complain too loudly. Summer heat was good for business. Jody and the men worked for a company called Consumers Ice Company. Every day in the summer, they would haul a huge block of ice onto their wagon and travel around Oak Cliff, delivering ice to their customers. Back in the early 1900s, people didn't have electric refrigerators, and they needed a way to keep their food cool so it wouldn't spoil. Men in horse-drawn wagons would show up at people's doorsteps and chisel off a piece of ice from their giant ice block. The ice block had to be enormous so that it would melt slowly in the summer heat. They didn't want the ice to turn into a puddle by the time they got to people's houses. Once the customers got their ice, they placed it into something called an ice box where they stored their food. Back in those days, ice was big business. Mr. Jones, the vice president of Consumers Ice, made a good living selling it. His job was to make sure everything ran smoothly at the ice plants. That's where they made all the ice. He was also the one who hired young Jody Thompson. Jody's real name was actually Joe, but ever since he was little, everyone called him Jody. Jody's family didn't have much money, and he was eager to make something of himself. As a boy, he looked after the ice company's mules and horses. Dressed in his overalls, Jody would be sweeping the stable floors, filling the horse feeder with fresh hay, and the stinkiest job of all, shoveling up the horse poop. But he was always happy to do it. Mr. Jones told him that if he stuck to it, he would do well at the ice company. When Jody was a teenager, he started helping the men haul huge ice blocks onto the wagons. Soon, Mr. Jones had him helping with the company books, keeping track of what they were spending money on and how much ice they were selling. By the time Jody graduated from college, he had become an expert in the ice business, and Mr. Jones was all too happy to hire him for a full-time job. This time, Jody wouldn't be cleaning up horse poop. He would be brainstorming ideas and finding new ways to make the company even bigger. And the company was going to need Jody's big ideas. In 1927, huge changes were coming to the ice business. That year, a company called General Electric started selling an electric refrigerator for the home. Would people stop buying ice if they had their own fridges? These thoughts worried Mr. Jones and Jody. But it looked like their refrigerator was slow to catch on. At least for now, most people still use their ice boxes. That same year, Jody got word that another businessman wanted to buy Consumers Ice Company. The man's name was Claude S. Dolly. Claude had an interesting idea. He wanted to get a bunch of ice companies together and make them into one big company. It was such an exciting opportunity that Jody convinced Mr. Jones to take it. That summer, Consumers Ice Company became part of a bigger, brand new company called the Southland Ice Company, and Jody Thompson was elected as one of its directors. Jody remembered all those days sweeping the stable floors and hauling enormous ice blocks onto wagons. Mr. Jones had been right. Jody had stuck to it, and now he was doing well at the ice company. The summer of 1927 would turn out to be very important for Southland Ice Company. Just like all summers before it, it was going to be a hot one in Oak Cliff, Texas. But you didn't always have to wait for ice to be delivered to your home. In many parts of the neighborhood, you could go to a store called an ice dock and pick up your own ice to take home. By 1927, the guzzling sound of a car engine was becoming very familiar. Thousands of new cars were built in factories in Michigan every week. And in Texas, many families could now afford their very own automobile. Many locals drove to one of the Southland Ice Company stores to pick up ice that summer. One of these stores was run by a man named John Jefferson Green. Everyone knew him as Uncle Johnny. Everyone loved Uncle Johnny's store for one simple reason. It was open 16 hours a day. Now, back in 1927, most places were closed after 6 p.m. and weren't open on Sundays. But not Uncle Johnny's store. He had been getting all sorts of odd requests that summer. "Do you have any milk?" one lady asked him. "It's late and I need some for my children." Uncle Johnny shook his head. "I'm afraid we only sell ice here." And another day, a man came in asking for a loaf of bread. Again, Uncle Johnny told him there was just ice. On Sunday, another woman came in. "Do you have any eggs?" she asked. "The grocery store is closed." Uncle Johnny had to tell her, "No." But an idea was churning his head. What if, he thought, I start selling milk, eggs, and bread at the ice stores? That summer, he decided to test out his idea. Using his own money, he bought milk, eggs, and bread and put them on a shelf in his store. It didn't take long for the money to start rolling in. Customers from all over the neighborhood heard about Uncle Johnny's shop. They knew they could stop by his place any day to pick up some last-minute items. Soon, he was putting up even more shelves in his store. With his pocket full of coins, he knew it was time to share his idea. He traveled to the Southland Ice Company office in Dallas, Texas, and knocked on Jody Thompson's door. "I have a deal for you," he said to Jody. Now, usually ice stores close after the summer because people don't eat ice in the winter. But Uncle Johnny told Jody he found a way to stay open all year. "I want to sell some things in the store. Milk, eggs, bread, maybe some canned goods too. And if you purchase these for me, I can pay the bills and keep the store open over the winter. And I'll give you a share of the profits." Jody agreed to the deal. So that day, as the summer of 1927 came to an end, the idea of a convenience store was born.
Hi friends, are you enjoying today's episode? I'd like to take a quick break from the story to tell you about another great place to learn about the past. Honest History creates magazines and books for kids that are filled with fun stories and activities that bring history to life. From pirates to spies to great inventions and so much more, you'll learn about interesting people, places, and events from around the world that made history. Created for kids ages 6 through 12, you can sign up and receive new adventures delivered straight to your doorstep every quarter. Just visit honesthistory.co. That's honesthistory.co to sign up today. Oh, and here's a special offer for our podcast listeners. Use code ANYTIMENOW for 10% off. Again, that special code is ANYTIMENOW. Okay, let's get back to the story.
Jody sat in his office in Dallas, Texas. He was curious to see how Uncle Johnny's plan worked out. Jody had already started selling ice-cold watermelon at some of the ice docks, but selling other things like milk and eggs had never crossed his mind. The next spring, Uncle Johnny returned to Jody's office and handed him $1,000. "That's your share of the profits," he told Jody. Back in the 1920s, that was like handing someone $20,000. After that, Jody had shelves added in ice stores across Oak Cliff. He told the store managers to experiment and stock the shelves with all kinds of things. Jody wanted to see what items people needed most. And it worked. Customers loved that they could stop by these ice stations and pick up things they needed, especially when the grocery stores were closed. And selling extra items meant the stores didn't have to close in the winter. They could stay open all year. Jody was looking for the next big idea. How could he bring even more people to the stores? The answer to his question came unexpectedly. He had heard some of the men talking about one employee's recent trip to Alaska. "He brought home a totem pole," one of them said. "Stuck it in his front lawn. You should see it." And there it stood, a towering, beautifully carved totem pole. It had been handcrafted out of wood by the indigenous people in Alaska. To them, it was sacred. It told the story of their history, ancestry, and the stories of their people. In certain parts of Alaska, totem poles were a common sight, but not in Dallas, Texas. People often stopped by the man's front lawn to stare up at the wooden sculpture. The man suggested that the Southland Ice Company place totem poles in front of their ice stores. It would definitely draw people's attention. "And we can call the stores totem stores," he suggested, "because people tote away the things they buy." The company soon put in an order to Alaska to build more totem poles. Later, the company decided to paint totem poles on the side of the stores instead, and ice stores in Texas became known as totem stores. Jody watched as the sales flooded in. People would sometimes drive miles to visit one of the totem stores, stocking up on ice, watermelon, canned goods, bread, milk, and eggs. It seemed that everything was going well. That is, until the next year. In 1929, the country entered the Great Depression. Across the U.S., people lost their jobs as companies shut down. Food became harder and harder to put on the table. Somehow, the Southland Ice Company managed to stay open during these difficult years. Claude Dolly left the company, and Jody Thompson suddenly found himself in charge. He was now the president of the Southland Ice Company. It was a position he had been working towards his whole life. With Jody leading the way, the totem stores kept expanding across Texas. Jody wanted one in every neighborhood. "You never leave your car at the Totem Ice Store," one advertisement read. "You drive in, give your order for ice, eggs, butter, milk, cheese, cold drinks, and 100 other products, and you are quickly served while you remain behind the steering wheel." But in the next few years, life would drastically change. By 1941, the country found itself in the middle of a world war. It was World War II, and American soldiers were being shipped off to Europe and the Pacific to fight. The war put a lot of pressure on the ice business. Food was in short supply, and ice was essential for keeping food cold during the hot summers. All of the ice company's energy was put towards delivering ice to American soldiers. When the war finally came to an end, Jody could refocus his attention back on his totem stores. By that time, many Americans had electric fridges in their homes, and Jody knew people wouldn't be coming to pick up ice as often. His stores needed to change. He knew he wanted the stores to be open early in the morning until late at night, and he needed a new name for them. Jody hired an advertising company to help him brainstorm. They came to his office eager to present their idea. "If all the store managers agree to stay open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., then we can call the stores 7-Eleven, they said. Jody loved it, and on the 24th of January 1946, totem stores were renamed 7-Eleven. As the company grew, 7-Eleven stores began opening outside Texas. You can find them in Florida, Maryland, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. Soon enough, there were hundreds of stores across the country. It was a remarkable journey for Jody Thompson, who had grown up with the company. It had been many years since he swept a stable floor, but he never forgot his first job in the ice business. Jody lived to see 7-Eleven open its 590th store. He passed away in 1961 at the age of 60. His son, John Thompson, became the company's new president to carry on his father's legacy. The next few years saw a lot of changes for the company. After an exciting football game in Austin, Texas, one 7-Eleven was so busy that it couldn't close. It stayed open all night so people could buy cold drinks and food. From that moment on, the company decided to change its opening hours. Instead of being open 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., they would stay open 24/7. That meant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Around this time, the company also introduced its famous Slurpee. Customers couldn't help but slurp up the sweet, icy drink on those hot summer days. But 7-Eleven would soon fall on hard times. In 1987, another financial crash hit, and this time the company was not able to stay afloat by itself. 7-Eleven stores were closing across the country. In 1991, a Japanese company stepped in to save the day. It bought up most of the company, and a new era began. Today, there are over 80,000 7-Eleven stores across the world, and depending on where you go, you can find all sorts of local treats, from kimbap in South Korea to fried squid snacks in Japan. It's hard to imagine that it all began nearly 100 years ago with some horses and a wagon. A lot has changed since 1927, but one thing has stayed the same. At most 7-Elevens, you can still pick up a bag of ice.
Welcome back! What did you think of today's adventure? We hope you learned something new. Be sure to share the story with your friends and family, and use what you've learned today to go out there and make a positive impact on history yourself. That's all for now, but if you want to learn more about important and amazing stories from the past, be sure to subscribe to Honest History Magazine, where you'll discover stories from around the world. Thanks for listening. This episode was narrated by Randall Lawrence and written by Heidi Coburn. Production was led by Robot Pirate Media. To learn more about Honest History, visit us at honesthistory.co and follow along for updates on social media.